You know I love my wool. I mean, most of my stash is basically a sheep in disguise, but it's not for everyone. Maybe it makes you itch. Maybe you're knitting for someone who's allergic. Maybe you're plant-based and don't want to wear anything with a heartbeat. Or maybe you live somewhere that thinks winter is a light breeze and a long sleeve shirt. Whatever the reason, you're here because you want to knit without wool. And I've got you, my friend. Today we're taking a practical and very swatch-heavy look at non-wool yarns. Plant-based, synthetic, fancy, and everything in between. I've got samples, opinions, and one extremely judgmental dog. We're going to talk cotton, linen, hemp, milk, sugarcane, Tencel silk spandex blends, and yes, even that classic standby acrylic. I've got almost 20 yarns to show you and a good number of projects. Each one has its own personality, and we're going to get to know them. Quirks, pros, cons, and all. See you in the lounge. Wool is fabulous. Why would you knit without wool? Here's a short list. You're allergic or sensitive, itchy, rashy, sneezy, not a good vibe. You're a vegan or avoiding animal products, or just trying to be more earth conscious. You live in a hot climate. Wool is moisture wicking, sure, but it's still warm. You're making summer garments or baby things, or you're just curious, which around here is the best reason of all. And no, you're not sacrificing quality or creativity. There are gorgeous non-wool yarns out there. You just need to know what you're working with. Okay, I've got a bazillion yarns to show you, and I've either knit a project or swatched every one of them, so you get to see what they are like in action. I knit all the swatches with the smallest recommended needle size, as many of these yarns are quite fine, and I wanted to get a sense of the fabric that each one makes at a relatively dense gauge. As I talk about each one, there's going to be a little bit of film of the swatch before and after blocking. Oh, and many of these yarns came from my friend Elizabeth, who owns the online yarn shop Sheepless Yarns, right here on Vancouver Island. Elizabeth is very allergic to most animal fibers, and particularly to lanolin. I can't even give her a hug if I'm wearing anything made with even a hint of sheep. She was having trouble sourcing yarns she could use and get excited about, so she opened a business all about sheepless yarns so that she and others with similar issues can knit beautiful projects and wear them and use them safely and comfortably. All right, that's enough. Let's look at the yarns. We will start with the yarns made from plants. First up, the plant we all know about, cotton. Cotton is the denim of yarns. Comfy, breathable, usually soft, easy care, relatively inexpensive. It's made from the fibers that come attached to cotton seeds. The fibers make a fluffy ball that's easy for the wind to carry and spread those lovely cotton seeds around. First up, we have non-mercerized cotton. It's soft, matte, absorbent, great for dishcloths, baby items, summer knits. It can sag and stretch a bit with wear. This is Pearl Soho Cotton Pure. It's 100% Pima cotton. You can machine wash and dry this one. And speaking of denim, This yarn actually has a little bit of marled white and blue effect to it, so it does have kind of a light denim-y appearance. It's loosely spun with lots of fine little plies, so it's light and soft and not at all ropey and would make a fantastic garment yarn. I knit this swatch on a 3.5 millimeter needle, and I really like the fabric that I've got. This could knit up into a garment quite nicely at this gauge with this yarn all by itself. Now this swatch, which is from Terrapin Fiberworks, is mercerized. It's been treated in a caustic bath, which gives the yarn shine and strength, which means it will hold up better over time, but it also has less give and absorbency. You tend to see mercerized cotton more often in crochet cottons and threads, but I found this pretty fingering weight mercerized Pima cotton when I was traveling in Boston last year, and this colorway is just super pretty and not something you would expect in a mercerized cotton. I knit this swatch on a 3.25 millimeter, and the fabric's not bad, but I really feel like I could have gone down to a 3 or even a 2.75 to get a bit of a denser, firmer fabric. I really like how smooth this is. I have a thing about smooth, and as you can see, this colorway is just gorgeous. Some tips for knitting with cotton: swatch larger than usual and block before measuring. Cotton tends to relax and change a bit after blocking. It can shrink, so if you want to machine dry, test for shrinkage in your swatch. It's great for stitch definition, not great for elasticity. It can be heavy in large projects, so you might want to avoid full-sized, worsted weight cabled sweaters. For example, this short sleeve number I knit in all cotton is quite heavy, but it does work well as sort of a short sleeve jacket over a tee on all but the hottest summer days. Always remember that cabling puts a lot more yarn into the same space than just straight up stockinette, so it will add a lot of weight. A great way to get that cable feel in a cotton is to break it up with some really open lace work so the whole thing doesn't get too heavy. You'll notice that both of these cotton beauties were designed by Nora Gong. Another option is you can try to lighten things up by using a cotton wool blend if you can tolerate the sheep factor. And further, you can try cotton yarns with a more airy construction like a chainette. We'll take a look at one of those a little bit later. Next up in Plantland, possibly my favorite of all fabrics, linen. Crisp, cool, and a little stiff at first, but it's a slow burn in the best way. It starts out crunchy and then softens gloriously with wear and washing. For example, this Cancun boxy lace top was quite stiff and rough and pretty unappealing looking fresh off the needles. So I zipped it into a lingerie bag, tossed it in the washing machine. You can do that with linen. You can also put it in the dryer, but I needed to block out the lace work on this, so I didn't do that with this one. When linen air dries, it will still feel a bit stiff, so I steamed it with an iron, and voila, drapey and delightful. And it will only get more so over time and with more wearing. It's light, breathable, almost indestructible, and shows off lace and openwork beautifully. The linen I'm wearing is Espace Tricot's Petite Laine Plus. They're sport weight linen. I was at Espace Tricot very recently, about 2 weeks ago, and one of the owners, Stephanie, was wearing this top in black. My friend Kathy and I, who were there, both immediately bought the yarn, went back to our hotel room in Montreal, and started knitting. It's really hard to imagine more instant gratification in a summer knit. Even though this linen is a little bit crunchy, it's not awful. I enjoyed knitting with it. I also knit a swatch in this gorgeous French linen carried by Sheepless Yarns. This is La Droguerie Laine. It's more of a DK weight linen. This one was sport. I knit the swatch on a 4mm needle, and it's quite nice. The drape is lovely. It could be knit a little more densely depending on the garment you wanted to make, but 100% wearable, knit at this DK weight gauge. Here's just a sample of how rich and beautiful these French linen colors are. I know Elizabeth is thrilled to be carrying this yarn. And I didn't knit a swatch in this because I forgot. But you can see I've collected quite a few colors in this Lang Creolino, which is also a sport DK weight yarn, 100% linen. I'm excited about doing a simple little color work tee or something out of these. And they actually feel quite soft for linen yarns. The yardage on these things is amazing. Each one of these was about $16 Canadian, 165 meters in a 50-gram skein. That's good value. Here's some tips for knitting with linen. If it hurts your hands, try blending the linen yarn with something softer, or you can even soak that skein and soften it up and let it dry before you start knitting. I have very, very, very sensitive skin, and I didn't have any issues knitting with either this French linen or the Espace Tricot linen. It's not the softest thing for sure, but I have knit with some plasticky acrylics that felt much, much worse on my hands. You can expect some rumpliness from your linens. I call them prestige wrinkles. But like the cotton, you can get linens in a chainette construction, which make them start out much softer and drapier right at the cast on. They also tend to be less prone to the creasing. This is my joinery top by Yumiko Alexander, knit in her own Dando fantastic linen yarn, which is a chainette construction. Look at the drape and softness of this beauty. You may notice I wear this all the time. Now, we really can't talk about linen without also mentioning its underdog cousin, hemp. Hemp is strong, eco-friendly, really easy to grow, and often overlooked, probably mostly because it can be hard to find. But of course, our friend at Sheepless Yarns has it. And I was really excited to get my hands on some and give it a try. It's similar to linen, but it's a little bit hardier and rougher. Although, like with linen, it gets softer over time. It wears like iron. It has a bit less drape and more structure. It's really great for bags, home decor stuff, and even summery tops. I would love to see more hemp blended with other fibers. I have used hemp in the past to knit dishcloths. It makes phenomenal dishcloths, dries quickly, naturally antibacterial, strong and durable. Sometimes I just throw it in the dishwasher with the dishes to give it a refresh. This particular hemp is made in Italy. It's Borgo di Pazzi. It's really, really fine. It's closer to lace weight than anything else. I think I knit this swatch on a 2.25 millimeter needle, and it's still pretty airy. I think if I were going to use this in a garment, I would probably double it or blend it with a different fiber. Maybe with a rayon, viscose, or bamboo to give those softer, more fragile fibers some sturdiness. I'm so intrigued by hemp, though. I really hope that yarn makers start using more of it. Here's another really interesting yarn from that same Italian maker, Borgo di Pazzi. It's called Ortica, and it's 100% Ramie, which is made from the fibers in nettles. It's incredibly soft. This is a fingering weight. It was only $10 for 200 meters. Hard to go wrong. It's smooth, light. It's got a nice shine. When I first got my hands on it, I whipped up this lacy little shawl. The pattern is called Wisp, and it's a free pattern on nitty.com. I modified it a bit by casting on fewer stitches so that I could knit it out of one ball of the Ortica. $10. I just sewed a few light wooden buttons onto one end and popped them through the lace on the other end of the wrap. I love throwing this over tees and summer dresses. It's a great way to show off some knitting, even in the hottest of hot weather. And Sheepless Yarns has a ton of fabulous colors in this Ortica. And now for something completely different, yarn made from sugar. Yes, sugar yarn, or more accurately, viscose derived from sugar cane. This yarn has extreme drape. It's silky, it's smooth, it's similar to a bamboo viscose. It has that cool to the touch, very slinky feel. It is not super elastic, so it's best in accessories or very loose drapey garments. You need to be careful with it. It splits easily. Again, it's a loosely spun fiber made up of a bunch of very fine little plies, and it may not hold up super well to high friction areas, but boy, is it soft and luscious. If you can't afford the price tag for silk, this is your option. I knit the swatch on a 4 millimeter needle. I could go quite a bit more dense with this if I choose to, but I wouldn't mind a lovely little tee in this at all. And yep, this Lanigato sugar is available at Sheepless Yarns. Now we're going to look at a couple examples of protein fibers. First up, a little bit more weirdness, milk. Yes, yarn made from milk protein. Casein, to be precise. It's real. It feels like silk and cotton had a very agreeable baby. It's smooth, breathable, and a bit shiny. It's often blended with other fibers. It can be a little bit fragile all by itself, not unlike the sugar yarn. Sorry, Oscar, we're still talking about yarn. Sheepless Yarns did have this Bella Trista milk yarn, but I think this might be discontinued. I knit the swatch on a 3.5 millimeter needle, and the drape is unbelievable. You can see how similar it is to the sugar yarn, but the sugar yarn is even softer and shinier than the milk yarn. And of course, we can't talk about protein fiber yarns without talking about silk. But this protein comes from a bug, a silkworm. Because of its expense, silk tends to get blended a lot with other fibers, but with 100% silks, you'll mostly find either super shiny, long staple silk yarn or matte, crunchy, short staple silk noil. Let's talk about the luxe stuff first. It's got gorgeous drape and sheen, no bounce, zero memory. It's super strong in the long staple fibers, but it is prone to snagging and the stitches will be slippery. Silk is a natural insulator. Did you know that the fancy long underwear is made from silk? It's also hypoallergenic and naturally antibacterial. You'll probably want to use wood needles and knit a bit tighter than usual. Silk, of course, makes beautiful warm weather shawls, tanks, or layering pieces. This divine lace from Crafty Jack's boutique is 100% Tussa silk. I knit this swatch on a 2.25 millimeter needle, and it's still pretty open and airy. It's unbelievably soft. I actually bought this yarn to use as a substitute for mohair when pairing with other yarns. I've got a whole video coming up on that topic, so you'll see this one again paired with some wools and stuff. Silk can also have a very different texture when the short fibers are spun together. This is silk noil or silk noil. It is drapey, but this super fine weight is almost too drapey. It's not at all shiny or strong. I can break this yarn with very little effort. If I tried to break the Tussa, I'd slice through my hand. This color and the tweedy flecks in this Kinu yarn from Ito is really beautiful, but I'm not in love with the fabric. It's a bit limp. And yes, there's a difference between drapey and limp. When I knit with this again, and I'm even contemplating frogging this piece, I'm going to pair it with a strand of linen or maybe a Tencel or a bamboo. I think there's some swatching in my future. She says, like there ever isn't swatching. And just a note, silk is definitely not vegan, and the milk yarn probably isn't either, in case that's a factor for you or someone you might be knitting for. Now here's one that's kind of sort of made from plants. This is Tencel or Lyocell. They're really the same thing. Tencel is the brand name for Lyocell, kind of like rayon and viscose are really the same thing. Tencel is a cellulose fiber which is made from wood pulp, often eucalyptus, and it's the plant world's answer to cotton and kind of silk. It's soft, strong, shiny, and it breathes. It's often blended with other fibers. And this one felt a little bit ropey before blocking, but I really love this texture. And like I said, I'm a big fan of fabrics that are smooth and drapey, but still have body. I find this Tencel is just like the best combo of cotton and silk. And a bonus, it's sustainable and biodegradable, great for people who want vegan-friendly yarns that don't code crunchy granola, if you know what I mean. I knit the swatch on a 2.5 millimeter needle, and yeah, I know that's pretty tiny, but this fabric is really nice. And look at this incredible colorway. Yes, this came from Sheepless Yarns. If you didn't want to knit at this teeny tiny gauge, you could blend this with a solid color Tencel in one of these colors to bump up the gauge and make it a bit less. I had to knit 11 million stitches to get this sweater. There's definitely going to be more of this yarn in my future. Now let's talk about some functional blends and a couple synthetics. Here are some fabulous yarns that blend fibers like a master chef recipe. This is a silk and linen chainette. This is horse silk by Gepard. It's 30% Tussa silk and 70% French linen. So think this guy and this guy blended together. I knit this swatch on a 3mm needle. It's drapey and quite airy, but it still has an impressive amount of body. And I think this chainette over time would open up and bloom quite a bit. This is another one I would love to knit with some more. This really needs to be something in my closet. And if you want something a little bit heavier and knits up more like the feel of a worsted weight wool, you could choose something like this Jody Long Coastline, which is cotton, viscose, nylon, and just a touch of linen. I knit this sample on a 5.5mm needle. It's got pretty good recovery, although if I pull it hard enough, you can see it does stay stretched out a bit. But it's quite light for what's really an Aran weight classification yarn. I would be tempted to knit this probably on a 5mm to make the gauge a little bit snugger, to make this a bit more durable. But I think this could be a really good substitute for a worsted or Aran weight wool in lots of different projects. This one came from a Espace Tricot in Montreal. This is Summer Solstice Paints by Juniper Moon Farms. It's half linen, a quarter cotton, a quarter viscose, and a tiny bit of polyester. And look at these fantastic color changes. How good does it look with this? I knit this swatch on a 3.25mm, and I quite like the fabric. It's got a nice density, good body, without being so dense to be uncomfortable in hot weather. I could see this knitting up into something super pretty. It does have a pretty rustic hand, but I'm positive that it's going to soften up over time, because I know you, linen. This fantastic Soulmate summer shirt was made in Sandnes Garn Tin Lina, which is cotton, rayon, linen, and magic. It's crazy soft, drapey, a bit of sheen. It's just gorgeous. And yes, this was knit at a very fine gauge. I think it might have been a 3mm needle. But I wear this so much, it was 100% worth it. I haven't tried its cousin yarn, Lena, which is more of a sport or DK weight. It might even be heavier than that, but I'd love to because I adore this fabric. And sometimes you'll find plant-based yarns mixed with a touch of spandex or elastic, and it's a game changer. This Kobasi by Haiku is a great example. I have this yarn left over from knitting this googly-eyed gator blanket for my grandson a few years back, and it is, as the name implies, cotton, bamboo, elastic nylon, and a bit of silk. It adds memory and bounce where there normally isn't any. It'd be great for ribbing heavy garments, tighter tank tops, and I have Kobasi Light, or I think it's Kobasi sock yarn to knit a pair of socks with. So again, if you're looking for something in a heavier weight that's going to act more like a wool in the same weight, Kobasi Plus is your girl. I'm not a huge fan of the texture because it's very crimpy, but it definitely reads more cotton than anything else. Okay, we can't talk about non-wool yarns without talking about synthetics like acrylic and polyester. Are they trendy? Not very. Are they useful? Absolutely. They are affordable, widely available, hypoallergenic, washable, but check the label, and great for beginner projects. The downsides, they can pill, they might feel plasticky, depending on the brand. I confess that I don't have much synthetic yarn in my stash, but I was super intrigued by this pop cycle yarn that Elizabeth carries at Sheepless Yarns. It's the best of both worlds. It's soft, drapey, breathable, half bamboo, and half polyester made from recycled pop bottles. I love how this knit up. I would definitely wear this. You can save the planet and your skin. I knit the swatch on a 3mm needle, and I think the fabric is just right. Although if you were doing a shawl or a lacy top, you could definitely go up a needle size to make a more open, airy fabric. It's got good recovery and a really lovely hand for something that's half polyester. I would not have guessed, and I'm pretty good at guessing. All right, here's what to expect and how to choose these types of yarns. If you're switching to non-wool yarns, here's what to keep in mind. Swatch. Seriously. These yarns don't behave like wool. Don't think you can just swap them out. Plant fibers stretch out differently. Some synthetics don't block. You need to know what they're going to do. Check your pattern. If it's written for wool, you may have to make adjustments to account for the drape, stretch, or changes in stitch definition. Pick the right kind of project. Silk and Tencel, great for flowy things. Cotton, not so great for a fitted cable sweater. Winding. You can wind this yarn into a cake with your ball winder if you want to, but don't pull from the center. These yarns often tend to be grabby and want to tangle, and particularly with the softer, slipperier ones, the cake is going to collapse as the yarn starts to disappear from inside, and then it's going to just end up a big jumbled mess. If you do wind it, put it on a caddy and pull from the outside, or hand wind it into a ball and pop it in your cutest yarn bowl. This is Yip Yip. I got him a couple weeks ago at Woolwich Fine Yarns in Guelph, Ontario. He's my emotional support yarn bowl, and I love him. Remember that a lot of these yarns are going to be slippery. You're going to want to use a needle type with some grip to handle them, like a bamboo or a plastic or maybe a carbon fiber. Change up the needle size up or down to get the fabric you want. Check labels carefully. Some blends will sneak in a little wool, and if you're avoiding it completely, you're going to want to double check that fiber content. If you want a deeper dive into a lot of these yarns, this book written by Amy Singer back in 2007, No Sheep for You, is really fabulous, and I love the way she writes. I feel like she sounds a lot like me, which is probably why I love it. Excellent book, worth having in your library. So that's your crash course in wool-free yarns, plant, bug, synthetic, and science experiment. Did I cover your favorite? Did I miss something amazing? Hit the comments and let me know what's in your stash on your needles for summer, or what you're curious to try. Don't forget to check out Sheepless Yarns. Before I let you go, I just want to mention that from now until September, I will be posting every second week on Saturdays again. I have a lot of travel coming up, including my own Knitting Help booth at XOXO Fiber in North Vancouver on June the 7th. Come see me there. And I'm taking a big trip to Europe in August, which includes a knitting cruise down the Rhine River with Patty Lyons and some other great knitterati. On the off chance you're going to miss me on those bye weeks and you'd like more behind the scenes content, personal updates, and some special extras, or even join a live Zoom with me, consider joining the After Hours Lounge, my YouTube channel membership. It's a great way to support the channel and get even more of me and Oscar, especially while I'm posting a little less often on the main feed during the summer. You can join for a few months and then cancel anytime. There's a join button down below and a link down in the description box. I say goodbye. Oscar says goodbye. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for your support, and I'll be back very soon with more videos to keep your needles clicking. Bye!